The MMA world has always thrived on chaos, hype, and unpredictable twists. But nothing has sent the community into a frenzy quite like the bombshell development involving Ilia Topuria, Arman Tsarukyan, and the growing concerns surrounding Khamzat Chimaev. In the ever-evolving landscape of the UFC, where rankings can be shattered overnight and reputations rebuilt with a single punch, the latest series of events has created shockwaves through gyms, locker rooms, fan forums, and promotional offices alike. The buzz began with a sudden and unexpected announcement, teasing a potential matchup between two of the UFC's most explosive rising stars, Ilia Topuria and Arman Tsarukyan. Both men have carved out reputations as fearless, relentless, and supremely talented fighters, each with momentum on their side. The notion of the two squaring off in the octagon had always been whispered about among hardcore fans, but when UFC President Dana White officially addressed the possibility during a post-event media scrum in Abu Dhabi, speculation transformed into anticipation. And, almost instantly, that anticipation became tension, as many began to ask a singular question: what does this mean for Khamzat Chimaev? To fully understand the emotional storm swirling around this announcement, one must consider the timing and context. Just months ago, Khamzat Chimaev was the undefeated boogeyman of the UFC, a menacing presence in both the welterweight and middleweight divisions who tore through opponents with ferocity rarely seen. Chimaev's rise was meteoric, his aura terrifying. But that narrative has recently begun to change, with lingering questions about his health, prolonged absences, cryptic social media posts, and the UFC's sudden pivot to promoting other names. Chimaev's once inevitable title destiny now seems less certain. It all came to a head during a sit-down interview at the UFC Performance Institute in Las Vegas, where Dana White, flanked by matchmakers Sean Shelby and Mick Maynard, addressed growing fan curiosity. The discussion started like topics like UFC Africa, Conor McGregor's potential return, and Jon Jones' heavyweight status, but once Topuria's name was mentioned, the mood shifted to Puria. Riding the wave of his shocking KO win over Alexander Volkanovski is now the reigning featherweight champion. Yet, he's made it abundantly clear he has no intention of remaining confined to one weight class. Boasting an undefeated record, knockout power, and the type of swagger that UFC markets dream of, Topuria has openly called out opponents at lightweight and even hinted at taking on middleweights. In doing so, he not only signaled his ambitions, but also his willingness to leapfrog over more seasoned fighters. Tsarukyan, on the other hand, has been patiently building his case. His performance against Boneo Dariush was a masterclass in timing, precision, and ruthlessness. He followed that up with a dominant display over Mateusz Gamrot, cementing his status as a real threat in the lightweight division. Though still young, Tsarukyan is widely regarded as one of the most technically gifted wrestlers in the UFC, a grinder with striking improvements that have made him a full-spectrum threat. When Dana White name-dropped him as a future title holder, it didn't go unnoticed. So when Dana White addressed the possibility of pairing Topuria and Tsarukyan in a marquee event, possibly in Europe, with stadium ambitions, the MMA community erupted. Fans immediately began speculating on how such a match could reshape the UFC's lightweight and featherweight landscape. But just as quickly, attention turned to a glaring omission. Why wasn't Khamzat Chimaev's name being mentioned? For months, Chimaev has been a mystery, following his hard-fought win over Kamaru Usman at middleweight, a decision that many felt was too close for comfort. Chimaev essentially vanished from the public eye. Rumors swirled about an undisclosed illness. Some insiders whispered about a chronic condition that could limit his ability to cut weight or train consistently. Others pointed to Chimaev's online posts ranging from spiritual quotes to vague hints of retirement as evidence of internal conflict. The UFC remained tight-lipped now, with Dana White focusing on fighters like Topuria and Tsarukyan to headline future mega fights. Fans are starting to wonder whether Chimaev's star is dimming. In one particularly viral moment during the interview, Dana was asked directly about Chimaev's future. His response was cautious but telling. "We love Khamzat. He's an incredible talent. But at the end of the day, this is the fight business. You gotta be active. You gotta be healthy. You gotta want it every day. Right now, we're focusing on the guys who are ready to go. And that's guys like Ilia and Arman." That response lit a firestorm online. Fan accounts dedicated to flooded social media with concerns. Was Dana sidelining Boers? Was Chimaev's UFC run in jeopardy? Theories ranged from contract disputes to deeper medical concerns, with no shortage of speculation filling the vacuum created by the lack of concrete information. What makes the situation even more delicate is the personal relationship between these three fighters. Topuria and Chimaev have often exchanged mutual respect and, at times, tension. Though both hail from the Caucasus region, Topuria from Georgia and Chimaev from Chechnya, they've represented different cultures and camps. Topuria trains primarily in Spain, while Chimaev was long associated with Sweden and now Dubai. In a 2024 podcast appearance, Topuria was asked if he would fight Chimaev. His answer was blunt: "If the UFC pays me to do it, I will fight anyone. Even my brother Khamzat is strong, but I fear no man." Similarly, Tsarukyan has never been one to shy away from big fights. Known for his stoic demeanor and work ethic, he made it clear in a recent press conference that he views any matchup, even against someone as dangerous as Chimaev, as an opportunity. When asked if he would ever face Chimaev, he smirked: "If he shows up, I'm here. I've always been here." The subtle jab didn't go unnoticed by fans who have started to reframe the narrative. Once seen as the inevitable next champion, Chimaev is now being cast as the fighter who disappeared. Meanwhile, Topuria and Tsarukyan are being hailed as the UFC's future hungry, active, and ready to take on all comers. Of course, the UFC is no stranger to shifting narratives. Just a few years ago, Chimaev was Dana White's golden child, booked to headline cards, rushed up the rankings, and even promised a title shot with just a few more wins. His demolitions of fighters like Gerald Meerschaert, Li Jingliang, and Gilbert Burns were on, but the grind of fighting, the wear and tear on the body, and the personal toll of fame appear to have taken their toll. In a behind-the-scenes video from UFC Embedded last year, Chimaev could be seen coughing between rounds during sparring. Dismissed at the time, fans now wonder whether it was an early sign of more serious issues. Then came the publicized weight miss at UFC 279, staggering 7.5 pounds over the welterweight limit. Though he won that fight after being reshuffled onto a new card, it marked the beginning of an uneasy relationship between Chimaev and weight cutting. Add to that the growing number of fighters publicly calling him out and the UFC's increased investment in other prospects, and the picture becomes more complicated. Is Chimaev being protected, sidelined, or has the UFC simply moved on? It's not lost on fans that Dana White has remained vague on Chimaev's next opponent. For months, talks of a title eliminator with Sean Strickland, or even a shot at the middleweight belt, floated around, but nothing materialized. Instead, fights like Dricus du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya and Topuria's jump to lightweight have taken center stage. Even UFC commentators have started to shift. Daniel Cormier, once an outspoken fan of Chimaev, recently commented that the window doesn't stay open forever, while Michael Bisping noted that momentum is everything. In the fight game, Chimaev hasn't had any lately. Still, there are those who believe Chimaev is simply biding his time. Former UFC champion Khabib Nurmagomedov, who has largely stepped away from MMA coaching, weighed in during a recent Q&A session in Dagestan. Khamzat is still one of the most dangerous fighters in the world. People forget quickly in this sport. He just needs one fight to remind them, but he must want it with his heart. Chimaev's manager, Majdi Shamus, also released a brief statement. Khamzat is dealing with some personal things. He'll be back stronger. Don't count him out. Not now, not ever. Whether fans will heed that warning remains to be seen. In the meantime, the UFC appears full speed ahead on building new stars. The potential Topuria versus Tsarukyan showdown could be a fight of the year candidate. Both men bring intensity, youth, and diverse styles. A win for either could catapult them into the top echelon of two-weight divisions. And with Dana White confirming that the UFC is looking at Barcelona or Istanbul for the card, both symbolic cities for the fighters involved, the event could be one of the biggest non-title fights in recent memory. But hovering in the shadows of this excitement is the question that won't go away. Where is Khamzat? For now, the mystery remains. Fans will speculate, analysts will guess, and Dana White will continue to promote the most marketable fights available. But one thing is clearly: a Topuria versus Arman Tsarukyan is happening, and it could mark a defining moment in a new era of the UFC. Whether Chimaev is a part of that era or a relic of a hype wave gone quiet is a story still being written. If Chimaev wants to reclaim his place atop the sport, he will need more than tweets and past victories. He will need to re-enter the octagon, face the next lion in line, and prove